position on that. Nothing wrong with disagreements. And if Emma, Francesca, and others can convince 79% of the nation that is opposed to that to come over to
saying it, where it's just like, hey, I'm sorry, when polled, and when it's phrased in a certain way, this is not a winning issue. So it's one that unfortunately we're gonna have to step away from. And then it's kind of weird how this happens, and that the right kind of picks these specific issues because they know they drive a wedge in otherwise, well-to-do people who might support human rights.
Agree to that. And today I'm going a little further, and I'm going to take Francesca off the network entirely. So you won't see her on any of the TYT shows going forward. So I want you guys to know why I'm doing that and how this whole situation isn't really about Francesca. It's about TYT, our community, and what we stand for.
Okay.
And so we're for open minds and open hearts. And so I
except hers.
Want all of you to know that, and I want to build a community that believes in that and invites people in that believe in the same things.
That's a wild thing to say when you're kicking someone out. Like, it's all about a community, open minds, open hearts, and
And by the way, if you don't believe in the same things and you say, no, I have a strict ideology and I have no open mind about that, no problem. There are tons of shows out there for you guys. So first of all, we've had some disagreements, I certainly have, with some of the far left, but I think they've been relatively small. But if you think that they've been large, no problem. So they've been around the issue of crime. Did crime rise between 2019 and 2023? Well, that's a fact, it did. But it's okay, we could have different interpretations of it, that's not an issue at all. We certainly are against police abuse.
Well, I mean, it seems like a broad generalization to say, right? To just sweepingly be like, crime in its totality rose. And that's a fact. So what are we gonna do now here?
And we fought against it. I would argue at least as much as any show on the planet, and perhaps a lot more. And I take great pride that Benjamin Crump, among others, said that Trayvon Martin would not have gotten anywhere near the national coverage that he did if it wasn't for the Young Turks. So nevertheless, we could have disagreements about specific policy issues, and we do on slogans and framing, etc. For example, defund the police, Latinx. These are normal disagreements within any community. And I certainly would never want to shut that down because we're, again, for open minds. And of course, we've had some disagreements on the issue of transgender rights. Let me just say quickly what my position is, because a lot of people outside of the network have been misleading you about this.
Okay.
So I'm for 100% constitutional rights for transgender Americans because why? They're Americans, just like the rest of us, and they should have the same exact rights as us. They should be protected in bathrooms. They should definitely be allowed to serve in the military. And I happen to think that they should be allowed to play, transgender girls should be allowed to play in girls' sports in high school. Now, my position on that is not overall popular in the country. I understand that, and I have a strategy for hopefully how to win on that in the long run. But I don't believe that they should be mandated to play in college and professional level. I think the league should get to make those decisions on their own. I think that that is a small disagreement. Obviously, others think that's a giant disagreement, but I
mean, you've gone into way more detail in other shows, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I think you can't on one end keep saying this is a losing issue, y'all. We gotta just be honest about that. That again, people they don't agree with us, so we gotta pick a lane that we're gonna be able to win elections in, and then openly be like, actually, my position is one that's not popular, but you know what? I'm gonna find my way in order to find out how we can make it work, and so we'll be there. I'm going to pretty much ignore the totality of all the other controversies I've had surrounding this topic, including being explained multiple times that my takes on birthing person obviously were wrong, that I and my own network were saying the opposite of what we started saying months before we started actually flipping on that topic, and how now we continue to push this idea that apparently it's just not popular amongst Americans when it comes to sports, that we're going to center a human rights issue around a topic where there are 14 or 12, like it's such a small amount of professional athletes in this league that actually play on this. Yeah, exactly. It's a losing issue, but I will not stop talking about it. I need to keep talking about this until the end of days.
Again, not the issue here. I think what the issue is when others, among the issues, is when others say only my opinion is the correct one, the moral one. Everyone who disagrees with me is unintelligent, immoral, collaborator, etc. Well, we'll get to the specifics on Francesca in a second. I'm saying that generally. And that they speak for the left. Well, let's find out if they do speak for the left. This is a little bit of Francesca, a little bit of Emma Vigeland from Majority Report, and spliced in is the actual.
Oh, I can't wait to see the clips he uses. So, murder and other violent crime dropped across the US last year. FBI data shows murder dropped 11.6 from 2022 to 2023, the largest single year decline in the last 20 years. Property crime was also down overall, where motor vehicle theft and shoplifting rose. Crime, including serious violent incidents like murder and rape, dropped nationally from 2022 to 2023, according to new data released by the FBI. Violent crime was down by 3% from 2022 to 2023. Property crime took a similar drop at 2.4%. The FBI reported summary of crime in the nation. The most serious crimes went down significantly. Murder, non-negligent manslaughter was down an estimated 11.6%, the single year decline in 2 decades, while rape decreased by an estimated 9.4%. Preliminary numbers show that 2024 crime numbers were also dropping for the early parts of the year, continuing the trend of easing crime in the US has come out after the pandemic. And then amongst property crimes, burglary decreased by 7.6%. Motor vehicle theft was up by an estimated 12.6% between 2022 and 2023. Recorded incidents of shoplifting were also up in 2022 to this in 2023, which is roughly the same level of incidents reported in 2019 before the pandemic. Store closures, COVID-19 security measures likely decreased shoplifting in 2020 to 2021, and they've affected the 2022 incidents as well. So, I mean, you're just factually wrong on this topic. You can't keep being that. Like, overall, it increased. That's just a fact. I'm sorry. And it's like, okay, are we allowed to look into it then? Can we pull it up or talk about it, or no? It's a fact.
Actual facts about what the American people think, and interestingly, what Democratic voters think. First, let's watch this.
I'm a big Messi fan, but let me just explain this.
Answer my question. Would you allow him, if he said I'm a woman, to play in the American women's national team?
You're using the wrong pronoun
Yes, right now. Hell yeah, are you kidding me?
Transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate.
And I like, this shit disgusts me, because it's like, guess what? Do you want to look historically what every civil rights movement and what they've gone through, whether or not it was generally had the approval of the electorate, or for every single struggle that has happened for groups that have been marginalized or oppressed in the history of the United States? Like, at that point, how was the polling? I'd like to know. Well, when they were marching, what was the polling at? When they were throwing stones and bricks, what was the polling at? Where were the polls? And then it's like, okay, but do you stand on the side of that this is a human rights issue that you should be fighting for, regardless of if it's popular or not? Because that's probably where we should start with this, right? Instead of consistently being like, when it's framed, when the question is asked to pollsters or people who are going to vote, and in a very specific way, here's the results. And I mean, they kind of speak for themselves, right? This is not a winning issue. And it's like, no one is campaigning on this as an issue, though. Like, I have not seen a single progressive be like, my platform, first and foremost, above all else, happens to be for trans women, specifically trans women. We're not going to talk about trans men, but specifically for trans women to be able to compete in female athletics on a professional level. And that's the first and foremost, the centerpiece of my campaign. After that, we can talk about other issues, the economy, the environment, but this is my platform. Whereas, like, the majority of people I know, especially if they're progressives who want to stand up for trans rights, will be most likely framing it in such a way that it's like, I believe this is a human rights issue. I believe that trans people, much like cis people, should have equal access to all things, whether that be healthcare, safety, the ability to use a public washroom, the one that they see and choose to use, that kind of stuff. That's how it's going to be framed. It's not like, yes, this is my campaign. And then it's like, well, we can't do this. If we do this, we're going to lose, right? Like, just look at this, the number low.
in women's sports.
Your argument is really bad on this, and you're out of your depth. You're correct that trans women should be able to compete in women's sports, but your argument for it is just scientifically and factually incorrect. I'm actually not bad about this. I'm 100% right on this. I don't give a the scientific explanations. People, if they identify as a woman, get to compete in sports. If that's not fair in the short term for a variety of little competitions, I don't give a
And I mean, my goodness.
Ooh, again, did you see the difference there? Because what Emma's doing is that this is a human rights issue to me, and I'm going to advocate it based on that. I'm not a politician. So I'm not sitting here being like, I want to win an election. And so I'm trying to find the lane that is going to be most applicable to the largest amount of the voting demographic and appeal to them. I'm just telling you like it is. So, but yeah, again, okay, keep playing their greatest hits.
Goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything.
because the societal interest of including trans people in society trumps stupid competition. Full stop. So I'm right about this. You're wrong about this.
Also, Emma loves sports. I don't know if you know this. She has her own show dedicated to covering sports. She happens to be a huge sports fan. And again, something where I am sure, they could be attacking a cis woman in this case. Same thing with Fran, and going after them and being like, hey, by the way, this is a losing issue. Did you see the polls? Did you see that NBC clip? He drew a fucking circle around the number. It was only 18% support. This is, sorry, it's a losing issue. And Cenk's demonstrating right here. He just prefaced this with being like, now I know my opinion on this is not broadly speaking popular, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have to find a way that, we work within this. And then it's like, hey, and to our fans, here's the compilation. Check this out.
You'd let Lionel Messi play in the women's national football team and destroy
Hell yeah,
women's football
welcome.
forever. You'd let Usain
it'd be
Bolt.
very difficult
Hang on,
to get a ticket, which would suck.
I want to do a little checklist here. You'd let Usain Bolt compete as a sprinter in the American women's Olympic team.
Yes.
Okay. You would
Yes.
let Floyd Mayweather compete as a boxer in the women's American boxing team.
Opposing them in women's sports. You get 67% of Democrats, so 2/3 there.
He said it is wild. Did you not see? Because the things that she's saying are not popular. Look at this.
You get 64% of independents. You get about 2/3 there.
So I'm right about this. You're wrong about this.
Fucking... Please keep playing their bangers. More greatest hits. I think that Fran even had a better response when she replied on Twitter to these clips going viral, saying that, I should have said that Floyd Mayweather has already actually beaten women in his own private life. He is a woman beater, so maybe that's something that I should have considered when speaking about this topic.
Okay, generally speaking, if you want to say that you're right about something, sure, everybody has their own opinions, and it's their opinions. That's why they think that they're right. It's another thing to say that you speak for the left. As you just saw there, 67% of Democrats have a position that is actually to the right of mine. I say that trans girls should be allowed to play in girls' sports in high school. 67% of Democrats say no, not allowed in any women's sports. So I'll work on my Democratic brothers and sisters, and I'll try to get them to my position on that. Nothing wrong with disagreements. And if Emma, Francesca, and others can convince 79% of the nation that is opposed to that to come over to that side.
See, all of this framing, this is what lets the right win. You are gifting them right now. Like this entire way of saying it, where it's just like, hey, I'm sorry, when polled, and when it's phrased in a certain way, this is not a winning issue. So it's one that unfortunately we're gonna have to step away from. And then it's kind of weird how this happens, in that the right kind of picks these specific issues because they know they drive a wedge in otherwise, well-to-do people who might support human rights, who might be like, yes, I believe people should have equal human rights. Okay, but do you think a biological male should be able to walk into a bathroom and then the same bathroom that biological females use? Do you think that's okay? Do you think a man, a strong man with a penis, should be able to walk into a women's bathroom? Does that not sound disgusting? Now who's gross? Now who's disgusting, right? And it's like, do you think that Floyd Mayweather should have to box a woman in the ring? Is that what you're saying? It's like, no, what are we doing here? This is not what anyone's advocating for. In fact, it's literally the opposite. It's so wild that they've managed to flip this whole thing on its head, because trans women are women. If you agree with that, then everything the right is proposing is to do the opposite of that. You are forcing trans women into men's bathrooms. Isn't that fucked up? You're the ones doing that. The same thing applies to sports. The thing, across the board, that's what you're proposing here. But now it's just like, well, it's not a winning issue. I'm sorry. You can just look. People don't support this. If you are a politician, and I've said this so many times, then yes, it is important how you convey ideas. And it's going to be important how you present this idea. And clearly it's a controversial one that the right has won a lot of ground on. So they are waiting for you to talk about this and just waiting for you to be like, so you're saying biological male should be, I'm saying, oh my God. You can hear how like even Gavin Newsom on his new little podcast show where he's like, I'm going to bring on every right-wing reactionary and see how they, can manipulate me. Even he has to be there. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Maybe parts of this have gone too far. Maybe parts of this have... If you're a politician, it's very clear that when you're messaging on this and this question is proposed, you can say that I believe that, again, trans rights are human rights, and I believe that human beings should have equal access to healthcare. I don't think people should be deprived of healthcare because they are not cis. I think that people should not be deprived of healthcare because they happen to be of a different race. I don't think that you should be able to deny someone access to healthcare if they're black, if they're indigenous. I think that is a really terrible way to run a society. I think that's bigotry. And immediately you flipped it on its head. Immediately now they have to run defense. They have to be the ones who are like, would you deny someone healthcare based on the amount of melanin in their skin? Would you deny them healthcare because they were black? Would you deny them healthcare simply because they're a woman, because they're not the preferred gender that you wanted them? And it's like, would you extend that then to people who are trans or cis? Would you suddenly say that trans people shouldn't have access to healthcare simply because they're trans? Like, look how easy that is if you're a politician. If you happen to be a leftist, and you happen to be a leftist who is a media personality, and you're talking to a phone, caller in your call-in show who's like, I think that this is a losing issue, and the Democrats should basically throw queer people under the bus so we can start winning elections again. Where is this working? I'd like to know. Can you show me the data that the Republican light strategy is winning in the hearts and minds? Because post-election, it seems like a lot of Democrats thought, oh, the solution to this is we have to become more like them. That they won the election, so what did they do to win? Bigotry. The winning ticket there, so let's do that. And now, what's the Democrat supports at like historic lows, like 27, 23%? It seems like, again, people do not want that. The people who are already in your base are going to be reviled and disgusted by you because it's like, holy shit, you're willing to throw any minority group you want under the bus to try and win an election. So to you, it's more about winning than it is about the actual issues. You don't care about issues. You care about fucking being elected. Shame on you. I mean, what a fucking shameless grift that you're trying to run. And on the other end, the Republicans do not want to fuck with you. They're not looking for the diet version of the shit that they're already getting mainlined, streamlined on the other end. It's like, oh, well, someone who just offers me slightly less bigotry, but apparently wants to do some other shit I don't agree with. But meanwhile, I got MAGA right there. I'm going for them. This is the strategy that I want.
Fantastic. Happy to have it. Okay. So I think where the issue comes in is when things get personal. So we got 3 rules, generally speaking, on air here at TYT that are relatively bright lines. So one is, and I say relative, I'll explain that in a second. One is no lying. 2 is no threats of physical violence. And number 3 is don't denigrate personally the other hosts in the network over and over and over again. And I say relatively bright lines because
wait, is that I feel like these are kind of custom tailored to the exact situation that we're talking about. Was that always, was this the code? Can we find the rules of conduct for all TYT hosts? All right, 1, 2, 3. And 3 is do not make fun of Anna and Cenk too much. You're allowed a little bit, but not too much. And then you cross the line. You broke rule number 3.
Could be relatively easy to follow, but I get that people have disagreements about, hey, what's a lie? Are what they say about crime stats a lie or not? No, I'm not going to nitpick that. And we get into
I did. You were lying at the very start. You just broad sweeping generalization. I'm sorry. It's just gone up. Crime, it gone up. Lying go up. That's just a fact.
Heated debates from time to time. Me and Ben Glebe in the past. Me, Ben Mankiewicz. Me, Michael Schur, etc. And I love those debates. And from somebody might cross the line and say something.
I totally forgot that Ben's still with the network. I would find, I don't know, someone who's directly, supporting the genocide of Palestinians to be way more egregious, wouldn't you? Or someone who was basically going to the student protesters who are again protesting genocide and then trying to be on the other end of that issue and film them and then try to provoke them. I mean, I would find that to be more offensive than say the TYT host who says that trans rights are human rights and that they should should have the same rights as cis people. I find that to be, I don't know, maybe something in terms of people I wouldn't want to work with.
They should know, but we usually hug it out. And so I'm not nitpicking here. What we're looking for is, hey, are we all rowing generally in the same direction, or are some of us drilling holes in the boat? And so are you doing it over and over again on purpose to try to create an issue? Or even if you're not trying to do it, you are creating an issue by constantly attacking our own. And I have applied this 2 other times, which I'll tell you about in a minute. This all started, unfortunately, when I went on Francesca's show and we had what seemed like a normal conversation and debate about this issue until it made a turn. And this is part of the turn. Let me show you.
I'm reminded of the book by I think his name is Michael Schneider on tyranny, and he wrote, it's like 20 lessons from the 20th century about authoritarianism and fascism. And one of the things that has come to mind when you say my strategy will protect us is he has this chapter, I'm gonna bring it up, the first part of it, called "Do Not Obey in Advance." And he writes, most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do. In other words, you don't have to do the sort of crackdown on the left around speech, because I'm gonna do it for you. Or you don't have to come to me.
Cracking down. Again, you're misstating it. I'm doing the exact opposite. You're cracking down by saying, Cenk, you're out of bounds. So you should stop with your stupid opinion. And because you're implicating me.
I can't believe that a guy who I used to admire and who I thought had a lot of fight is trying to scratch the back of people who absolutely would never do the same for them.
So we just.
Wow, I can't believe that Cenk is just playing all of her greatest hits. I mean, as a attempt to form an argument against her and be like, I'm sorry, this is why I got to justify removing her entirely from the network, and I'm gonna have to show you these clips. But I think they speak for themselves.
Spent an hour and a half me explaining how I'm not scratching their back. I'm trying to get
but I can show you more clips,
to agree with us on things we believe in and we've always believed in. And you go back to scratching their back.
At least the trains will run on time.
The trains run.
So I watched that when she first released it, and I was like, "Oh, that was fucking such a brilliant little dig at the very end." And I guess he didn't pick up on it at the time, but now someone has explained to him what that means, what that reference is. So now he's like, "The trains will run on time." Apparently, I'm Mussolini. That's how far we've gone. And this is what I've said with the Max left. All they want to do is call me Hitler, and some of them want to call me Mussolini. Maybe one of them Franco. I don't know. Maybe one of them will call me Pol Pot at a certain point. But this is what they do.
On time, presumably a reference to Germany. I'm the collaborator, and
Italy.
I'm scratching the right wing's back by having my opinion. The opinion I've always had, an opinion I've had for years, and you guys have seen for years on the show. But if you don't agree with Francesca in that particular case, and some other folks in the extreme left, well, you're not allowed to have that opinion. That is immoral by definition. And how dare you disagree with them? That makes you a right winger, a collaborator, et cetera. But if you say, hey, Cenk, look, I know that she's quoting someone, collaborating with an authoritarian government and saying that that's what you're doing and you're helping the right wing, and that she's not open to the idea of, hey, maybe there's a different strategy and a different.
No, Jesus Christ, I know it's become a meme at this point, but the entire idea between, say, fascistic movements that were trying to come to power was to sell generalized ideas, AKA populist ideas, the word you love using when you're like, MAGA is populist. I tell you, MAGA is populist. And because they're populist, there's no way that they're gonna allow Trump to get away with all the fucked up things he's doing, because they will turn on him the second that he doesn't actually deliver for the working class. Again, this is fascism 101, where if you have someone who is coming to power, say like Mussolini, and he's making a promise to the people of Italy at the time that he's going to make the trains, which were not running on time, run on time, and there's a certain percentage of the population that votes for him because of that reason, say like, Trump, is he going to lower the price of eggs? Is he going to lower the price of groceries? Inflation is going to go down. You know what? That's why I'm voting for him. That's the whole reason. When it turns out that's not at all what he cares about. He is actually about assuming totalitarian power. That's the danger of trying to believe a faux populist. That's why, again, you should not be collaborating, let alone believing a word that they're saying. Because, I mean, at this point, if this was filmed 2 months ago, maybe you could afford him some grace. But we're 2 months into this. It's very, very clear now what Donald Trump is doing. So at this point, to still sit there and be like, apparently I'm a collaborator with Nazi Germany or something. I don't know.
Opinion on this that gets us to the same result, protecting trans folks or whichever topic we're talking about. Okay, if you're not, and at that point, I certainly hadn't done anything. I think that was, I didn't appreciate that, but that's okay. We kept going, and she's been on the network since. Then she started to do more and more and more, and it got more and more personal. So after that discussion, this happened.
I like that we can both be very Mediterranean about it and get like super mad, but then rein it in and be cool, and then be like, we're like, yeah, we're just gonna yell, and then we're gonna be fine, and then we're gonna get over it. So that's the kind of beer I like to have.
Yes. Thank you.
2 days later.
I mean, I have my own thoughts on like why he's doing it. I think, if you think your brain was broken by the
Did you SpongeBob meme your ex-employee? Cenk, no. Okay, you guys, you gotta see this. You gotta see this. Check this out.
2024 election. I think we're looking at a case where someone's brain was broken even harder.
Yeah. I can't believe, why are you doing to your you're doing this to yourself, my guy. He says, all right, I'm gonna show you. Come on. I mean, this one speaks for itself. You guys, you gotta see this. You gotta see this.
Okay, so, but look, guys, if she had said that about another host, I probably would have drawn the line there. But it's about me, so I wanted to give more leeway. My brain is broken. And by the way, that's still, okay, the first time she's getting super personal. Collaborator, maybe that's a political opinion.
Wait, I'm sorry. That was an insult. That was just a line too far. That you would have fired her if she'd said that about another employee? Are you serious? If you have a disagreement with another person, even if they're a colleague, and then you're like, I don't think you're right. I think your brain is broken on this issue. That's, I'm sorry, not grounds for dismissal. That's not even grounds for like a really strongly worded rebuttal.
And now we're a broken brain, even though we were supposed to have a beer and we were supposed to hash it out and be okay afterwards, but apparently not okay afterwards. But then that was the tip of the iceberg. She continued again and again. Here's the next one.
Oh my God.
I do think it's sad that even though they allow people like us into the fold and the fray, they refuse to learn from us or listen to us. And I think that when you have been doing this work for so long and you still cannot grasp the idea of intersectionality, how race and gender and class all intertwine with one another, and how the right, the fascist goal is to divide us based on these lines. Like, I don't know like who you are. Like, I'm not even, I don't even know if you're smart. You know what I mean? I don't even know.
Again, I'm just kind of in awe of this whole thing. Like, how are you playing all of these clips one after the other, sitting there like, can you believe this? The audacity that she had. At one point, I mean, she said that I'm glad we're able to get Mediterranean and get heated on this issue and have a disagreement. But then, afterwards we can go get a beer. And then she said my brain was broken. And then afterwards, she said, but I'm sure a lot of people at TYT, especially people who have left the network, have been saying, which is that, like, why won't you listen to anybody? Rather than simply try and discount us as being wrong, you're the only one who knows what's right. You're the only one, you have an incredible amount of people from diverse backgrounds who might be able to help you because, again, we might have different lived experiences or different understandings of these topics. And rather than discount all of us, I don't understand. It makes you feel, but she did say not smart. So, again, probably going too far.
First, actually score any points for our side. No one invited me back on the main show. I was never invited back on the main show since December. And so tacitly, it was clear that I was not going to be invited back. Then when I put out my little Curb Your Enthusiasm video that sort of pointed out that Cenk laughed in my face about there being detention camps, and of course, lo and behold, Gitmo is opened to Venezuelan migrants, alleged gang members, which honestly TYT's coverage has very much contributed to the hysteria around, sadly. And when I put that out, I think he got really mad. I think he got really prickly. I then interviewed Mondale Robinson, who also quit as a TYT contributor. He didn't like that interview. He's been watching. He watches, right? And then, of course, to my patrons, I did call him a bitch. I said he was acting like a bitch, and let's be real, there's a difference. I'm just saying, like, in that moment, he was acting like a bitch, and that was when he did something that I think has been a pattern for both Cenk and Anna, and the pattern I have a problem with, which is going on right-wing shows and actually, instead of arguing about issues or trying to win points for a side of justice, democracy, freedom, is actually serving up so-called extremist leftists on a platter as a sacrificial lamb, as an offering. Look at this crazy person who said that trans athletes can participate in, whatever, Olympic sports. And isn't that insane? Let's agree on that. And that is my offering to you as I come to your table. And like I said, it doesn't get you anything. And in that moment, I was the offering. The things I've said on Piers Morgan about trans athletes, things I continue to say about trans athletes.
Yeah, what struck me from his video about you was, first of all, he basically front loads it with this attack on you, calling you max left because of your transposition, and he basically tries to do what you did with your curb theme, albeit much less successful.
Right.
He tries to prove that he was right, and dunk on you when he doesn't prove his point. Like, he shows a poll, or CNN's Harry Enton talking about a poll saying that most Americans don't agree with trans athletes. None of us are talking about the popularity of trans athletes and not basing our policy on popularity. Our support for policies on popularity. We're basing it on morality and making a substantive argument.
Yes.
So just saying, well, policy X is unpopular, therefore it's not correct.
Which is how most
make
like
that
most
argument
civil
about gay
rights
marriage
movements
20 years
work.
ago.
Yeah, which is like how most civil
Absolutely.
rights
Yeah.
movements go through, right? Like, how popular was, Black Lives Matter? How popular was the civil rights movement in
Right.
general at the time? What was it polling at? We should find that out.
Desegregation.
Right. We should
That
know.
was very unpopular.
Yeah.
So we're not making an argument based on popularity. I'm not a populist inherently. I'll use populism to my advantage if it suits my narrative to get what I want accomplished. But at the end of the day, I have moral principles. And that was the point that you made that went right over his head. And what I loved is that in the end, he was talking about how unbothered he was by all of this while playing the clips of you dunking on him and shitting on him in the most hilarious fucking way
It kind of
imaginable.
looks good, right? It came
Oh
off
yeah,
looking
no, those were
pretty
your
good.
greatest
It made
hits. Those
you
were bangers.
genuinely
Yeah,
look
those were
fucking
awesome.
amazing. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't get how he does that and then pretends to be unbothered when clearly, like, if that were me, like if I was the subject of that and you're like, you look like a bitch, I would be bothered. Just saying.
I guess, I always feel like it's weird when someone sets up the sort of parameters of debate and so it's like as if I have to respond to every single thing he said in that video, because really he didn't respond to the substance, because there's a reason I said those things about him. There's a reason I said, I don't know if you're smart and I don't know who your mentors are. I don't know if you know your political histories of struggle. I don't know if you care about that. I don't know if you care about civil rights to the point about, same-sex marriage, or interracial marriage. These were things that were also not popular. So I'm not really sure what your touchstones are. And the reason I said that is because of his behavior since Donald Trump has been reelected. There's a reason, and he completely didn't address that. And I've been really obsessed with this Democratic. I mean, she's a progressive leftist strategist who studies movements and electoralism around the world, Anat Shenker-Osorio. And she came on my show and she said something great, and I don't want to butcher it, which is the job of a good message isn't to say what is popular. It's to make popular what needs to be said. And what needs to be said is things like trans people are people, and you should not, if you bar people on just any kind of legal framework from certain aspects of life, that creates a slippery slope, a permission structure, even a legal structure to take away rights from other groups of people. Trans issues are absolutely a trial balloon on authoritarianism. And Mara Jones was on my show the other day. She said exactly that. I mean, so it's like, these are the things that I don't think he gets, and I don't think he cares to get. But of course, you guys, we're all the max left, all right? And we are all very biased. And all y'all have tangled with him before too. And I literally asked him when I talked to him on my show in December, I was like, so like what shows do you like? Like which leftists do you even support? You know, and he said nice. He was like, like Mike Figueredo, you know, and
Oh, Mike,
you know,
look
I'm
at
like, have you
you.
ever heard
Shut
anything
up.
Mike's been saying? Like, listen to him, you know.
You should watch his videos
right?
on you.
Yeah, and then he said, you know, I like Kyle, and I know Kyle hasn't gone super negative, but has massive critiques. And Crystal Ball's interview with Cenk was mostly Crystal going, okay, you know, like she held her tongue, but like, you know, so it's just like it sucks, you know, but for us, for you guys who do this every week, it's like so great because it's sort of like, all right, here is someone who is, you know, alienated their former allies. And we in this moment, I mean, we should be forming unions for content creators. We should be fucking ready when Google comes at us for speaking out about Palestine,
Which they
speaking
will.
about which they will, for speaking about trans rights. Like we need to get prepared right now. And sadly, one of the biggest, you know, blue bubbles on the Media Matters map, you know, like isn't with us on this.
That's what makes it sad to me because I watched TYT for a very long time. Back when I first started college, getting into politics, like I wrote papers on new media citing TYT. So to me, it's not just like, I know people like will accuse me of trying to drama farm and shit like that, but I'm like genuinely sad because I felt like I really looked up to these people, and to lose like the biggest network, the largest online news network, and to see, and Cenk likes to simplify his anti-trans take, when if you look at everything they say, look at what Anna says, she's just transphobic. Like it's not just about sports anymore. There's other things that she says.
She said, I don't know how I feel about locker rooms. I don't know how I feel. You know, I mean, this is there are Proud Boys, you know, in LA protesting, have been protesting outside of, you know, spas because they allow trans people. Like this is not abstract. I mean, these are real white nationalist talking points. These are and sort of clarion calls, whatever. That's their. And I'm not saying she's a white nationalist, but it's like you gotta look at the connection here. Oh, I don't know how I feel about locker rooms. I'm fine with bathrooms, locker rooms. What's the difference? Let's see. How much of a wall must there be? You know. I mean, obviously, Ariana and I know that all we're doing is checking out people's genitals in female locker rooms. That's all you do. Mostly, you're like, oh, hey, hey.
Yeah, I can't confirm.
Yeah,
it's civil rights with terms and conditions. Essentially, it's what they're trying to set up, right? And this is the reason why the right uses all of these issues. These are wedge points. It's a really easy thing to be divisive on because no one wants to sit there and be like, "What, are you okay with biological males going into female bathrooms and penises?" And now obviously everyone's going to be like, "Oh shit, no, wait, God, oh Jesus, that sounds terrible." But then if it's like, this is exactly why I'm going to frame it in such a way that when you hear it like described that way, of course, oh yes, maybe things have gone too far. The gender ideology, the woke mind virus, everything's taking over, and you're giving them all the ammunition they need. Now it comes from the left. Look, it's not just the right who says this. The home of progressives is saying that things have gone too far. Now, oh my God.
That's what it's so,
it's insidious, right? It can be so much more damaging when you have like a Jesse Singal or someone who establishes themselves as a centrist or a leftist or a liberal or something like that. The right uses that when it comes to like, hey, now we're trying to enforce laws that are directly going to discriminate against people. And it's not just coming from right wingers. It's coming also from liberals, centrists, and the left as well. So here we go.
And it's not even just that. It's that, you know, TYT is fairly, you know, a big channel, obviously, online. So their viewers don't all share like their most progressive views, or even really may not consider themselves all that political to begin with. Like maybe they lean, you know, left, so they watch TYT. And maybe they have a question about what they're like. Maybe they're questioning where they should, how they should feel about, you know, trans issues. And what TYT says will be highly influential to them. And what they're getting from TYT is, hey, you can still feel like you're progressive on other issues, and it's okay to be anti-trans rights on all these others, and that's a cool ideology to have.
And speaking
that's
of
what people are taking away from it. Yeah.
No, and I think that speaking of those other issues is actually kind of where I have even some of the biggest problems, especially with Anna's coverage. And in my video, I sort of explain that, you know, specifically on the LA wildfires, taking, you know, a 10-15 minute segment to put the face of this undocumented mentally ill man who was like citizens arrested by people, in West LA for trying to start a fire that had nothing to do with the Palisades fire or the Altadena fires, right? Like nothing to do with it. Plasters his face like we're doing straight up like local news psycho propaganda, right? And then same with the Tren de Aragua stuff in, Aurora, Colorado. Anna swears and stands by her coverage that they were all overrun. And you're like, this is so dangerous, man. It is so scary. And it's like, okay, let's say they're gangs. They're overrun with it, right? Like, do we believe that, like, do you understand like the consequences of who you're talking to and what how you're talking about this? Because she never says it. She leads the audience to the water and she's shadowboxing with the left. Like, well, you see, I don't know, because they're there and they're harming those residents. And it's like, well, so what's the answer? Because we know what the answer is under authoritarianism, which you seem okay to casually walk toward. It's arresting innocent Venezuelans who, yes, don't have documentation, but who are seeking asylum, who happen to have tattoos. Now they're in a prison cell in a terrorist prison in El Salvador. Christy Noem's in front of them doing selfies. Like, literally, like, so, and that's the other thing with homelessness. It's, look, I know there's a housing crisis. I know it. And I know, yes, I understand. But honestly, the Democrats take way too much money and all of the housing projects and all the attempts at curbing it are all corrupt. And so what's the answer? What it say it? Finish your thought. And the thought is sometimes you got to criminalize people. Sometimes it's okay to lock people up.
Yeah.
Sometimes they should be deported.
And you can't be on the other side of it too. She frames it usually in such a way where it's like, if they're talking about crime, it's like, are you actually on the side of the mad stabber who stabs out grandmother's eyeballs every day? Are you taking that side? And it's like, no, but this is an isolated case. Is this indicative of a broader trend? Is this happening all the time? Are Venezuelans coming over here and stabbing grandmother's eyes out? But if you pick this scary ass story, of course everyone's frightened. Of course, like, I'm not going to sit here and defend the eye stabber.
But she picks it on purpose. She picks it to talk to us, to chide us. That's what she's doing. She's talking to us, right? And that's why I find it so sloppy and lazy and dangerous. And I do think that the origin that she constantly talks about of chat was mean to her about talking about being assaulted by an unhoused person or being sort of groped, right? It was scary, obviously. But I actually think I found the first video, and I know she's probably watching this, and there's like a 10% chance I could be wrong on this, but I think it was when she actually interviewed a guy who wrote a book called San Francisco that was called How Progressives Ruin Cities. And it was basically blaming, progressives for like allowing drug addicts to run rampant. And it's not just about housing. Some people don't want to be housed.
That's the Michael Schellenberger book. He's the guy who took over the Twitter files when Elon Musk and Matt Taibbi had the falling out. So that's a great source to
this is like 2020, 2021. I'm on the second hour. She's on the first hour. I run in there and the chat is livid. And I'm like, what is happening? And they were like, yo, she was platforming this guy. He was saying all this stuff. But within that interview, she does share that story of being groped. And she took that and was like, see, the chat thing is downplaying something that was done to me. And it's like, no, they're mad because this guy is a fascist. This guy's awful on these issues. And he's not interested in having serious conversations about mental health, addiction, and actually, the unhoused population. Like, so that is what I think the origin story. And again, there's 10% that I could be wrong on this. She might have shared this. I didn't watch TYT all the time. So there might be TYT people who are like, nah, she told the story before, which could be, but I was on the show that day. It's just wild, of course.
Yeah, because I was always curious about that, because I've heard her say that before about how the left made fun of her for telling her story, which, I mean, I didn't know if somebody had done that. And if any leftist had done that, then I unequivocally obviously denounced that. I think that's terrible to downplay what she went through and minimize it. So I never knew what she was referring to with that. And a lot of it seems to be them just like saying, like Cenk often brings up how he was called a Nazi. And it's like, I don't know who's calling you a Nazi. Is it Lance that you're insinuating called you a Nazi? Is it Matt? Like, they are clearly shadow boxing a lot of the time, and they're arguing against straw men. And I feel like they're
Yes.
being purposefully obtuse specifically because the same things we are arguing at them are what they argued at us. I mean, 6 months before Anna Kasperi made her famous birthing person tweet, she was making that same argument, right? She was talking about how Professor Kiara Bridges and Josh Hawley were going toe to toe because she said person with the capacity for pregnancy,
Right.
and he started to attack her for that, woke language or whatever. It's been a while, so my memory's a little bit foggy.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how he was just using that as a distraction. Trans people are not your enemy. And a few months later, all of a sudden, I guess that it's not a distraction. And using that kind of language is woke and it's bad or whatever. Not to like put words in her mouth. I don't want to straw man her after accusing her of straw manning us, but like it's just they've all done this 180, her and Cenk in particular, and it's frustrating that all of a sudden, we've gotten to this point where Francesca is beyond the pale, Sam Cedar's beyond the pale, Lance is beyond the pale. Who's not beyond
Sam
the pale?
Cedar's the ultimate
Brianna
grifter,
Wu.
according to
Brianna Wu.
Ultimate
Ben
grifter, Sam
Glebe,
Cedar.
yeah.
Brianna Wu, Ben Glebe. I mean,
They're fine.
Ben
they
Glebe
can participate in the marketplace of ideas.
platforming Ben Glebe is truly like it's like platforming a Nazi. I'm very
It's
confident
genocide
in-
apologia, straight up.
I'm very confident in saying that. Like you cannot, and they get clicks, and that's whatever. But like, it's straight trash that comes out of his mouth. Absolute garbage. Absolute lies. He's also presenting. It's not like he's just coming in and be like, "Hey, what do you think? We know you're very, Zionist, whatever." He's actually presenting stories about Gaza, and Anna, oh, how dare you have us censor somebody? And it's like the last thing I'll say on this is like, I've always been open to debate. I've always wanted to have debate. In fact, about a year ago,
Mhm.
maybe a year and a half ago, around the trans athletes issue, I told Cenk called me and he was like, "Hey, just so you know, like TYT show is the main flagship show. We're going to be more like," he didn't say moderates, but like mainstream progressives. We're going to do like mainstream. I'm like,
Right.
cool, centrism, okay, and
Enlightened.
and then because that's what they are, and they don't. It's fine to be a centrist. It's okay. It's okay to be a centrist. I don't like you. I mean, I don't like the politics, but anyway. But then I floated to him. I was like, why don't we just have a debate? I think the audience would love it. You and Anna, me and John will talk about it. We'll hash it out. I think folks will be never like no. So this whole idea of like I've had this debate.
Yeah.
We can totally. I'm open. I'm an open book. It's like you're pretending that me saying that you acted like a bitch to again only my patrons that good old Hank clipped up and like it's just like pretending that was the massive slight and or the fact that I said that his brain was broken like as if that was like a racial slur. Like, well, calm down.
I said his brain is broken too. I put it in like the thumbnails because his brain is broken. He's very clearly crashing out. But to your point, Francesca, like in bringing up, Ben Glebe and Brianna Wu, my contention isn't that Cenk should deplatform them. But what I'm saying is that I feel like it is disingenuous to platform them and debate them, but you won't offer that same thing to Francesca or Sam Cedar. You'll talk to right-wing fascists like Charlie Kirk, an explicit racist white supremacist, but yet you won't have that same conversation with Sam Cedar. That's what's so frustrating to me, is because the energy that they save for the left, like the vitriol that they refer to the left with on a daily basis, like that's not there for the Zionists. Well, unless he's on Piers Morgan, then he does do a great job. It's not there though for for anyone but the left.
Dr.
Like
Phil.
No, and I told him that
they're
privately.
the whole progressives. Like
So privately before I asked Cenk to come on to have the debate, I privately called him and I said the exact same thing. And I was like, you seem to have so much grace for, some people on the right. And I just wish you would extend that same grace to people who were once your allies, who were on your network, who really want, whatever, our side to win, for, again, justice, democracy to prevail. And he's like, nah. Because again, we're talking about a really thin-skinned person. Like it sucks, but he is. And it's just like, that can't be your guy. You know what I'm saying? Like someone who's like, like, it's just like all I'm saying is like, can you reserve some grace for people who agree with you on 98% of other issues? And it's like, he is constantly, again, every accusation is a confession. Oh, but you got to stand in line. You got to do this. And you got to. And it's like,
but only one of us is yelling right now, man. Like,
And it's not like what I find amazing. For years he's talked about how Democrats are too nice. They got to fight harder. You got to fight. Don't be afraid to
sure.
fight. And when somebody fights him and challenges him, oh, that's too mean. You can't do that. No, we got to have a beer together. Like, what the? I thought you were the guy that's all about fighting, like about fighting for what
Yes.
you believe in. And
Yeah.
someone does it to you, and you can't stand it. Like it's been wild to witness the whole just the complete destruction of that network because of both Anna and him.
And
Well,
I
yeah,
think,
I will. I
oh,
will
go
say,
ahead.
like, again, I don't know what happened in the background, but it was always like at least one feather in his cap that, like, he may be fighting with you about this stuff, and he may have horrible opinions, but he at least his long-standing, contributors, he let them still do that, like, on the network, like, even though they were disagreeing with him and talking shit about him. And I say that usually even about the right wingers that reach it, that do stuff with left wingers, like, whatever you think about this person, the fact that they engage and we have these discussions, I think that's something, the one thing that's a feather in their cap. But, like, apparently he doesn't even want that anymore.
Right. I mean, you look, like, I'm not saying I should stay on the network. I do think it sucks, and I have a lot of hard opinions and sad opinions about the damage report. But I think it sucks because while they weren't going to book me anymore, and I knew that tacitly on the main show, John and I are good friends, and I go on there every week. And he has since been barred, and so has Dr. Rashad Ritchie been barred from having me on Damage Report or Indisputable, which is really sad. And I do think it kind of speaks to the work culture that John does not feel comfortable in saying, this is my show, and I would like to book who I would like to book. And I do think there is a general lack of respect for the people and autonomy for the people who actually make Cenk and the network a lot of money. And you know what? The other thing is, it's not that much money. I know that they have a lot of people to pay. I understand that. But then, like, like what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, scale back if you need to scale back. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you need, like, it's just like that's not a reason to have poor workplace practices. If anything, you'd have more buy-in when you give people more freedom. You'd have people working harder for you. But again, I also know that they consistently deny, and I said this in my video, deny people bonuses when they're making hella money for them. And it's like, nah, not enough. And it's just like, he's cheap. I'm sorry. He's cheap. And the other thing is like, I got paid for my appearances, not a lot, but I got paid. I relied on that income for a while. And I remember when I got paid, the head of programming told me, don't tell anybody that you're getting paid. Right. So something to know.
I was on there a few times, never got paid. Not that I expected to, but
yeah, I didn't expect to, because I was just a contributor to a power panel. So it's like, I'm getting on a bigger network with lots of viewers. I guess that's
sure. But if you're consistently, going on,
I was on the main show like the first hour a few times.
I think if you're making content, like you're actually editing a segment, you're writing a script or thinking of an idea, you're basically presenting it to, and like you were doing this for them, right? And then you would have to afterwards.
I was a guest host, but also I was paid for my time, and I think that's the right thing to do. And it doesn't have to be tons of money, right? But I think it is the right thing to do. It is time out of your day, and it can't just be for like, thank you for the platform, sir. And they also obviously went back on a contract they signed with me in 2018. They do a lot of people dirty. In 2018, it was like I was hired for 2 weeks and they were like, "Oh, sorry, just kidding." And my reps were like, "You need to sue them." And I was like, "I don't want to because I want to maintain a good relationship with them." And you've heard Ben Dixon's stories. We all know Hank, the editor, part-time editor's stories, the union busting stories. It's like the guy doesn't necessarily believe in workplace democracy. He doesn't believe in even transparency. And I know that also firsthand, that it's a very opaque company. Nobody really knows what anyone else is doing. The strategy isn't clear. And I'm going to go, but the last thing I'll say is that's part of, I think, what has happened with the Anna, Cenk, Thelma Louise situation is that Anna was for so long kept away from decision making. She was just a presenter and she was pissed about it. It sucked for her. And I was someone who super encouraged her to like fight for it, don't leave, ask for more power, ask for more, editorial control. Oops. Because
what have you created?
What did I do?
Maybe she should have left.
Yeah, well, yeah, and she has a lot of control, and I think Cenk, out of a sense of paternalism, responsibility, feeling like maybe he did her wrong in the early years, didn't give her enough buy-in, I think is allowing her to take the network in not a great direction, and now obviously he's all on board with it. So that is my sort of like psychoanalysis of, again, what I think is a really toxic relationship that actually they will turn on one another. We will see that happen.
The housing market is not broken. It's working as designed. It's designed to benefit the super rich and investors and make the rest of us pay the price. It's designed to jack up our rents and make homelessness skyrocket. Vancouver doesn't have to be this way. We can make housing affordable by closing loopholes landlords use to jack up rents, building affordable public housing, and stopping dem-evictions. I'm Sean Orr, and I'm running to be your next city councillor with COPE. On April 5th, let's fight for Vancouver.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned Indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This video wouldn't be at all possible without the financial support of all the people whose names you see on the screen right now. And if you want to unlock secret bonus episodes, content that we can't post anywhere else, or get the videos early before anyone else gets to see them, please go on to patreon.com/theserfs. For as little as $1, you can help support this channel and help make more videos like this possible. Our executive producers are Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Garrett Sandoval, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Boehm, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Tigwig, Trav, and Words Greenwood. And also, it wouldn't be possible without all the names you see on the screen right now. Again, if you want to help produce this content, it's only made possible through the funding of our patrons. Head on down to patreon.com/theserfs. That's patreon.com/theserfs.